The Syrian militia surrounded our home at 3:47 a.m. I know the exact time because I was staring at my phone when the first rock shattered our kitchen window. The glass exploded inward like 1,000 tiny knives, and my daughter screamed. My wife grabbed her, pulled her down below the window frame, and I heard the sound that still wakes me up at night: boots. Heavy boots. Dozens of them. Circling our house like wolves around wounded prey. I need you to understand something before I go any further. I'm not telling you a story I heard from someone else. I'm not repeating something I read on the internet or saw on the news. I lived this. My hands are shaking right now as I speak because I'm taking you back to the worst night of my life and the night I witnessed a miracle so impossible, so unexplainable, that even the men who came to kill us fell to their knees. The air that night smelled like burning diesel and fear. They'd been burning homes in our neighborhood for 3 days straight. Christian homes. They had a list. They had names. And mine was on it. Through the broken window, I could see orange flames licking the sky 2 streets over, my neighbor's house. The same neighbor who'd shared bread with us last Sunday. The same neighbor whose children played with mine. Gone. Just gone. Come out, Kafir. The voice outside was rough, Arabic thick with a Syrian accent. I recognized Abu Hakim. I knew him. Before the war, before ISIS rolled into our city like a plague, he sold vegetables in the market. My wife bought tomatoes from him. Now he's sold death. And tonight, he was selling mine. My daughter, she was 7 years old, 7, buried her face in my chest. I could feel her heartbeat. Racing. Like a trapped bird. Baba, she whispered, are they going to kill us like they killed Uncle Tariq? What do you tell your child in that moment? What words exist in any language to comfort a 7-year-old girl who's asking if she's about to die? I had no gun. No weapons. No escape route. Our home was a simple 2-story concrete structure in eastern Syria, in a city I can't name because my family members are still there, still hiding, still surviving. We were trapped on the 2nd floor. 15 militants outside. Maybe more. I could hear their walkie-talkies crackling, their voices coordinating. They weren't random thugs. They were organized. Trained. And they'd done this before. You have 2 minutes. Abu Hakim shouted. Come out and renounce the cross, or we burn you alive like the dogs you are. My wife looked at me. Her eyes, I'll never forget her eyes that night. They weren't asking me to save us. They were saying goodbye. She knew. I knew. We both knew this was the end. There was no military coming. No police. No rescue. The Syrian army had abandoned our region months ago. We were alone. Utterly, completely alone. Except, we weren't. I pulled my wife and daughter close. Our foreheads touched. And I prayed. Not the elaborate prayers I'd rehearsed in church. Not the eloquent words of pastors or priests. Just 4 words. Desperate. Raw. Bleeding from my soul. Jesus, hide us. Please. I heard the splash of liquid against our walls. Gasoline. The smell was overwhelming, choking. They were going to burn us. The same way they burned the al-Rashid family last week. The same way they burned the church. The same way they burned every Christian home in our sector. Allahu Akbar. The chant started. Multiple voices. Rhythmic. Building. This was it. This was how my story ended. My daughter. My wife. Me. Ash and memory. I heard the strike of a match. And then, listen to me carefully. What I'm about to tell you defies logic, defies science, defies every natural law you've ever learned. But I have witnesses. I have men who came to murder me who will testify to what happened next. I have neighbors who watched from their windows. I have video footage from a cell phone that went viral in Syrian underground Christian networks. The fire started. I heard it roar to life against our outer walls. The heat, immediate, intense, I felt it through the concrete. My daughter screamed. The flames climbed our walls like demons ascending from hell itself. Orange, red, white hot at the center. The windows on the first floor exploded from the heat. Black smoke poured inside. We were going to suffocate before we burned. I closed my eyes. Jesus, I whispered one more time. Into your hands. And the shouting outside stopped. Not gradually. Instantly. Like someone hit a mute button on reality. I opened my eyes. The smoke in our room was clearing, but not dispersing naturally. It was pulling back. Retreating. Like it was being sucked out by an invisible force. My wife gasped. My daughter stopped crying. We all felt it. The temperature dropped. In the middle of a fire that should have been 1,000 degrees, the air around us became cool. I crawled to the window. I had to see. I had to know what was happening. The fire was still burning. Fully engulfed. Our home was surrounded by a wall of flames 12 feet high. But the flames, they were bending. Curving away from our house. Like an invisible dome was pushing them back. And in that impossible space between the fire and our walls, nothing. Just empty air. Cool. Breathable. Impossible air. But that's not even the part that made the militants drop their weapons. Standing in our driveway, between the fire and our front door, was a figure. Tall. Radiant. Not made of flesh. I don't know how else to describe it. And somehow I knew it was he, was dressed in white that glowed. Not reflected light. Generated light. And in his hand, a sword. Not metaphorical. Not symbolic. A real sword. Burning. Blazing with fire that was somehow brighter and purer than the flames surrounding us. Abu Hakim was on his knees. 15 militants armed with AK-47s, grenades, knives, all on their knees. Some were crying. Some were praying. One had fainted. The figure didn't speak. Didn't move. Just stood there. A guardian. A warrior. A wall between death and my family. I don't know how long we stood there. Time felt suspended. But eventually, the militants ran. They left their weapons. They left their gasoline cans. They scattered into the night like cockroaches when you turn on a light. And the fire? It died. Not slowly. Instantly. Like someone turned off a switch. The walls that should have been charred black were scorched, yes. Damaged, yes. But our home was standing. And we were alive. My wife collapsed. My daughter was shaking. And I fell to my knees and wept. Not from fear anymore. From AWE. From gratitude. From the crushing, overwhelming realization that God Himself had just intervened in my death sentence. But let me take you back. Back to the war zone where this impossible story truly began. Back to the weeks leading up to that night. Back to when I was just another Christian trying to survive in a city that wanted me dead. back to when I didn't know, couldn't have known, that I was about to witness a biblical miracle in the year 2023. Because what you just heard? That was only one of the miracles. There were more. So many more. And I'm alive to tell you every single one of them. His name was Abu Hakim al-Bridni. The British one. And if you think that's ironic, a man from London leading an ISIS cell in Syria, you don't understand how deep the poison of extremism runs. He wasn't born a monster. He was made into one. Radicalized in a mosque in Manchester, recruited online, smuggled into Syria through Turkey in 2014. By the time he arrived in our city in 2023, he'd already beheaded 4 people. I know because he bragged about it. I'd seen him before the war. Before ISIS. Before everything turned to blood and ash. He was different than quiet, polite even. He'd converted to Islam at 19, married a Syrian woman, moved to her hometown. Our town. He ran a small vegetable stand near the central market. My wife, Rasha, she bought cucumbers and tomatoes from him every Thursday. He'd smile. He'd give our daughter, Miriam, free dates. He seemed normal. But war doesn't just destroy buildings. It reveals what's really inside people. And what was inside Abu Hakim was darkness waiting for permission to emerge. When ISIS took control of our region in 2017, Abu Hakim didn't resist. He joined. Within 6 months, he wasn't selling vegetables anymore. He was enforcing Sharia law with a whip and a sword. Within a year, he was a commander. And by 2023, he controlled our entire sector, 12 neighborhoods, 40,000 people, and a kill list that grew longer every single week. Christians were at the top of that list. I remember the exact moment I knew we were being hunted. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Hot. The kind of heat that makes the air shimmer like water. I was walking home from the underground church meeting we held in Brother Yusuf's basement, 15 of us, praying in whispers, singing hymns with our hands over our mouths so no one would hear. We'd learned to worship in silence. Because noise meant death. I turned the corner onto our street and saw it. Spray painted on the wall of our home in red Arabic script, Kafir. Enemy of Allah. Judgment coming. My blood went cold. Not because I didn't know this could happen, every Christian in Syria knows, but because now it was real. Now it was my wall. My home. My family. The abstract fear became concrete. Became now. I ran inside. Rasha was cooking lentil soup on our small gas burner. Miriam was drawing pictures. She always drew churches with crosses on top, no matter how many times we told her it was dangerous. I grabbed Rasha's arm. We need to leave. Tonight. She looked at me. Didn't ask why. Didn't question. She just nodded. Because she knew. Every Christian woman in Syria knows that look on her husband's face. The look that says, they're coming for us. But here's what you need to understand about war zones. You can't just leave. Where do you go? The roads out of the city were controlled by checkpoints, ISIS checkpoints. You needed papers. Approval. Bribes. And even then, they'd search your phone. Check your photos. Look for crosses, Bibles, Christian apps. One wrong item and you'd be dragged out of your car and executed on the side of the road. We had no papers. No bribes. No connections. We were trapped. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window with a kitchen knife, pathetic, I know, but it was all I had, and watched the street. Every shadow looked like a fighter. Every sound was a footstep. Dawn came and we were still alive, but I knew it was only temporary. The next day, Brother Yusuf was arrested. Dragged out of his home at noon in front of his wife and 4 children. They beat him in the street. Abu Hakim himself was there, supervising. I watched from my window, 2 blocks away but close enough to see everything. Close enough to hear Yusuf's screams. "Where are the other Christians?" Abu Hakim shouted, his British accent making the Arabic words sound even more sinister. "Who else comes to your meetings?" Yusuf didn't answer. They broke his fingers. One by one. The snapping sounds echoed off the concrete buildings like gunshots. His wife collapsed. His children were screaming. And I stood at my window, frozen, paralyzed by fear and shame. Because I knew if I went out there to help him, they'd kill me too. And then who would protect Rasha and Miriam? So I did nothing. I watched my brother in Christ get tortured, and I did nothing. They executed him that evening in the town square. Public beheading. They made everyone watch, men, women, children. They forced us to watch. I held Miriam's face against my chest so she wouldn't see, but she heard. The sound of a sword cutting through flesh and bone is not something you forget. It's wet. It's heavy. And then there's the sound of a body hitting the ground. Abu Hakim held up Yusuf's head and shouted to the crowd, "This is the fate of apostates. This is the fate of those who follow the corrupted cross. There are more of you hiding in this city. We know who you are. We have a list. And one by one, we will purify this land of your filth." His eyes scanned the crowd. And for just a split second, maybe 2 seconds, his eyes locked with mine. And he smiled. Not a big smile. Just a small curl of the lips. The smile of a predator who's already selected his next victim. I knew in that moment, we were next. That night, I broke. Completely broke. I sat on the floor of our bedroom with my head in my hands and I wept. Not quiet tears. Loud, gasping, desperate sobs. The kind of crying that comes from a place so deep you didn't even know it existed. "I can't protect you," I told Rasha. "I can't protect Miriam. I'm useless. I'm a coward. I should have helped Yusuf. I should have done something." Rasha knelt beside me. Put her hands on my face. "You are not a coward. You are a father. And fathers protect by staying alive. Yusuf is with Jesus now. But Miriam still needs you here." But I didn't feel like a father. I felt like a scared little boy playing dress-up in a man's responsibilities. For 3 days, I prayed. Desperate, angry, confused prayers. "God, why are you allowing this? Where are you? Do you even see us? Do you even care?" I'd heard testimonies of miracles, stories from other persecuted Christians in Iraq, Egypt, Pakistan. Stories of angels. Of divine protection. Of impossible rescues. But they felt like fairy tales. Because in MY reality, good people were getting their heads cut off in town squares. On the 4th day, someone knocked on our door. 3 soft knocks. A pause. 2 more knocks. The signal from the underground church network. I opened the door just a crack. It was Amal, a Christian widow from the next neighborhood. "They're coming for you tonight," she whispered. Her face was pale. Terrified. I heard Abu Hakim's men talking at the market. "Your name is on the list. They're going house to house. They'll reach your street after midnight." My stomach dropped. "How do you know?" "My nephew works for them. He's not ISIS, he had to join or they'd kill him. He told me." He said, "Run." I thanked her, closed the door, turned to Rasha. She was already packing a bag, clothes, medicine, a bottle of water, our last bit of bread. Miriam was sitting on the couch, clutching her stuffed rabbit, her eyes wide and wet with tears. "Where will we go?" Rasha asked. I had no answer. Because there was no answer. Every option was death. Stay here? Death. Run to the checkpoints? Death. Hide in the city? Death. But then I remembered something. Years ago, before the war, my uncle had built a small hidden room behind a false wall in our basement. He'd built it during the first Syrian civil war in case we ever needed to hide. I'd forgotten about it. We'd never used it. But maybe it could buy us a few hours. A few days. The basement, I said. We hide in the basement. That night, we moved everything we could into that hidden room. Blankets. Food. Water. A flashlight. Miriam's rabbit. We pulled the false wall closed behind us. It was dark. Cramped. The air was stale and thick. But we were together. And for the moment, we were safe. We waited. Hours passed. I heard footsteps above us. Shouting. Doors being kicked in. Gunfire. Screaming. The sounds of a neighborhood being purged. And then, at 3:47 a.m., I heard the boots. On our street. At our door. The first rock shattered our window. And I knew our time was up. The hiding was over. The hunt had found us. I pulled my wife and daughter close. And I prayed the prayer I didn't even know I believed would work. Jesus, hide us. Please. I didn't know it yet, but heaven was already mobilizing. Angels were already descending. And the God who saved Daniel from lions, and Shadrach from fire, and Peter from prison, he was about to do it again. For me. For us. I need to tell you something I'm ashamed of. Something that makes me feel like a fraud every time I share my testimony. But if I'm going to be honest, and I owe you honesty, then I have to say it, I almost gave up on God. Not almost. I did give up. For 3 whole weeks before that night, I stopped believing he was listening. Let me take you back further. Back to when the war first came to our city. Back to when I still thought prayer actually worked. It was 2019. For years before the miracle. For years before the angel. ISIS had just taken control of our region, and they'd issued an ultimatum to every Christian family: convert, pay the jizya tax, or die. The jizya was extortion, a protection tax of $500 per month. Per person. For my family of 3, that was $1,500 a month. I was a schoolteacher. I made $200 a month before the war. Now the schools were closed. I had no income. No savings. Nothing. I couldn't pay. Which meant we had 2 options: convert to Islam or be executed. I prayed for 40 days straight. Every morning. Every night. Sometimes in the middle of the night when the fear was so thick I couldn't breathe. I prayed the way they taught us in church: specific prayers, faith-filled prayers, prayers with scripture. I prayed Psalm 91, "He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty." I prayed Isaiah 54, "No weapon forged against you will prevail." I prayed Matthew 7, "Ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find." And you know what God did? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The jizya deadline came. I didn't have the money. Rasha sold her wedding jewelry, the only valuable thing we owned. It got us $350. Not even enough for one person's tax. We were finished. The day they came to collect, I was ready to die. I'd made peace with it. I told Rasha, if they kill me, take Miriam and run. Don't stay for my body. Don't grieve. Just survive. She was crying so hard she couldn't speak. She just nodded. But then something strange happened. The ISIS tax collector, a man named Rashid, came to our door. I opened it. Stood there waiting for the bullet or the blade. He looked at me. Looked at Rasha holding Miriam. And then he did something I'll never understand. He lied for us. He shouted loud enough for his supervisor to hear. They paid. Full amount. I have it here. He held up an envelope, someone else's payment, and marked our name off his list. Then he leaned in close and whispered, I had a dream last night. A man in white told me, do not touch this family. I don't know what that means. But I'm not going to be the one who finds out. He walked away. We were spared. Temporarily. You'd think that would strengthen my faith, right? You'd think I'd fall on my knees and thank God for the miracle. But I didn't. Because the next week, ISIS raided the church where we'd been meeting. They captured 19 Christians. 19 people I knew. People I'd prayed with. Sung with. Broken bread with. They executed all of them. Beheaded them in the same town square where they'd later kill Yusuf. Why did God spare me but not them? Why did I get a miracle and they got a sword? That question tortured me. It still does. I started to think maybe God was random. Maybe he flipped a coin. Heads you live. Tails you die. Maybe he played favorites. Maybe my prayers didn't actually matter at all. Maybe I just got lucky, and the others got unlucky. So I stopped praying. Not officially. I still went through the motions, bowed my head at meals, whispered amen when Rasha prayed, but my heart wasn't in it. My heart was angry. My heart was calling God a liar. The next 3 years were hell. Not metaphorical hell. Actual, living, breathing hell on earth. Our city became a graveyard. Half the population fled. The other half either joined ISIS or lived in constant terror. Food became scarce. Water was rationed. Electricity worked maybe 2 hours a day. We survived on lentils, stale bread, and stolen vegetables. Miriam stopped growing. Malnutrition. Her ribs started showing through her skin. She stopped laughing. A 7-year-old child stopped laughing. I watched my daughter waste away, and I prayed nothing. Because what was the point? God wasn't listening. Or worse, he was listening and just didn't care. Rasha kept praying. Every single day. She'd wake up before dawn, get on her knees, and plead with God. For safety. For food. For escape. For anything. I'd watch her from the bed, watch her lips moving, watch tears running down her face, and I'd feel nothing. No faith. No hope. Just emptiness. How can you still pray to him? I asked her one night. After everything he's let happen to us. She looked at me with those tired, beautiful eyes. Because if I stop praying, I stop breathing. Prayer is the only thing keeping me alive. I didn't understand. Not then. In 2022, things got worse. ISIS started a new campaign, Purification of the Faithful. They went neighborhood by neighborhood, house by house, checking everyone's religious identity. If you were Christian and refused to convert, you had 2 choices: public execution or slavery. Yes. Slavery. In the year 2022, women and children sold to fighters as spoils of war. Men either killed or forced into labor camps. Our neighborhood was scheduled for purification in October. We had 3 months. 3 months to figure out how to disappear. I went to the underground church, what was left of it. Only 8 of us remained. Everyone else was dead, enslaved, or had fled. We met in a bombed-out building on the edge of the city. No roof. Walls half collapsed. We sat on broken concrete and talked in whispers. "We need to leave Syria," Brother Fadi said. He was older, maybe 60, with a gray beard and hands that shook from malnutrition. "There's a smuggler in Turkey who can get us to Europe. It costs $5,000 per person." I almost laughed. $5,000? I didn't have $5. None of us had $5. "Then we pray for a miracle," Sister Layla said. She was young, maybe 25, and her husband had been killed 3 months earlier. She had a 2-year-old son. God provided manna in the desert. He can provide this. I couldn't hold it in anymore. When? I snapped. When is he going to provide? When is this miracle coming? Because from where I'm sitting, God is silent. He's absent. And we're about to be slaughtered. The room went quiet. Everyone stared at me. I'd said what they were all thinking but were too afraid to say out loud. Brother Fadi spoke softly. "I understand your anger, brother. I feel it too. But anger at God is still engagement with God. It's still relationship. The opposite of faith isn't doubt. It's indifference. And you're not indifferent. You're furious. Which means you still care." I wanted to argue. But I couldn't. Because he was right. I was furious at God because I still believed he existed. I still believed he could help. I was just convinced he wouldn't. We prayed that night. All 8 of us. Desperate prayers. Loud prayers. We didn't care if anyone heard. We were going to die anyway. So we shouted at heaven. We demanded God show up. We reminded him of his promises, the promises that felt like lies. And God? Still silent. I walked home that night under a black sky. No moon. No stars. Just darkness. The streets were empty except for the occasional ISIS patrol. I kept my head down. Walked fast. The smell of smoke was everywhere, someone's house burning a few blocks away. Another Christian family. Another execution. When I got home, Rasha was sitting on the floor with Miriam asleep in her lap. She'd been crying. Her eyes were red and swollen. "They came by today," she whispered. "Abu Hakim's men. They spray-painted our wall." I'd seen it. The red words. The death sentence. "We're going to die, aren't we?" she said. Not a question. A statement. I sat down beside her. Put my arm around her. "I don't know. Maybe. I'm not afraid of dying," she said. "I'm afraid of what they'll do to Miriam before we die." That broke me. The thought of my daughter, my innocent, beautiful, pure daughter, being violated, tortured, sold like cattle. That image destroyed every last piece of faith I had left. I pulled Rasha and Miriam close. And I whispered into the darkness, "God, if you're real, if you're good, if you're anything the Bible says you are, prove it. Because right now, I think you're either powerless or you're evil. And I don't know which is worse." That was my prayer. Not faith-filled. Not hopeful. Just raw, bleeding honesty. And still silence. The next 2 weeks were the darkest of my life. I moved through each day like a zombie. I barely spoke. Barely ate. I was just waiting. Waiting for the inevitable knock on the door. The inevitable violence. The inevitable end. And then Amal came with the warning, "They're coming for you tonight." That was the moment, standing in my living room with my wife packing our death bag and my daughter clutching her stuffed rabbit, that I realized something. I had one prayer left. One desperate, final attempt. If God didn't answer this time, I was done. Finished. I'd meet him in heaven, if heaven even existed, and I'd ask him why. Why he abandoned us. Why he let the innocent suffer. Why he stayed silent when we screamed for help. But for now, for this moment, I had to try one more time. Because if I didn't, if I died without asking, I'd never know if he would have answered. So when we hid in that basement, when the boots surrounded our house, when the rocks shattered our windows, I prayed. Not with faith. Not with confidence. Just with desperation. Jesus, hide us. Please. 4 words. That's all I had left. 4 words and a crushed, bleeding heart. I didn't know it yet, but those 4 words were about to unlock heaven. I need to tell you something that might shock you. Something that changes everything about my story. Something I've been afraid to say because I didn't want you to think I was lying or confused or making this up. I wasn't born Christian. I was born Muslim. My full name, my real name that I can't use anymore because there's still a price on my head, is Ahmad Hassan al-Nouri. I was raised in a devout Sunni Muslim family. My father was an imam at a small mosque in Aleppo. My grandfather had memorized the entire Quran. I grew up praying 5 times a day, fasting during Ramadan, studying Arabic and Islamic theology. I was a good Muslim. A practicing Muslim. A believing Muslim. Until I wasn't. Let me take you back to 2016. 1 year before ISIS took our city. 1 year before everything collapsed. I was still teaching at the local school history and Arabic literature. One of my students was a 15-year-old girl named Samira. Bright. Curious. Always asking questions that made me think. One day after class, she stayed behind. "Teacher Ahmad," she said quietly, looking around to make sure no one was listening, "can I ask you something about religion?" I should have said no. I should have sent her home. But I didn't. Of course. "Why do we kill people who leave Islam?" she asked. "If Islam is the truth, why does it need to threaten people with death to keep them?" The question hit me like a punch to the stomach. Because I'd wondered the same thing. For years. But I'd never said it out loud. Never allowed myself to fully think it. "It's complicated," I said. "Apostasy is considered treason against the Muslim community. It's about—" "But Jesus didn't kill people who rejected him," she interrupted. "Christians say he died for people who hated him. Why is our prophet different?" "Where are you hearing these things?" I asked, suddenly nervous. If anyone heard this conversation, we'd both be in danger. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small book. Worn. Pages folded. A Bible. In Arabic. Specifically, the Injil, the New Testament. My heart stopped. "Where did you get that?" I hissed. "Do you know what they'll do to you if they find you with that?" "A Christian woman gave it to me before she fled the city," Samira said. "She told me, read about Isa. Read his words. And decide for yourself who he really is." So I did. And Teacher Ahmad, her eyes filled with tears, I can't unsee it. I can't unknow what I read. Isa isn't just a prophet. He's more. Stop, I said. Don't say another word. Not here. Not anywhere. Do you understand? They will kill you for this. I know, she whispered. But isn't truth worth dying for? She left. I stood there in that empty classroom, shaking. Not from anger. From fear. Because her question had cracked something open inside me. Something I'd been keeping locked and buried for a very long time. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Samira said. About Isa Jesus. About the difference between a prophet who spread his message by the sword and a prophet who died on a cross. About a God who demanded submission versus a God who offered love. I did something dangerous. Something forbidden. I went online using a VPN, taking every precaution, and I downloaded a digital copy of the Injil. I started reading. In secret. Late at night when Rasha was asleep. I told myself I was just researching. Just trying to understand why Christians believed what they believed. Just being a good scholar. But the more I read, the more everything I'd been taught started to crumble. In the Quran, Allah is distant. Transcendent. Unknowable. You submit to Him. You obey Him. But you don't know Him. Not really. He's too far. Too other. But in the Injil, Jesus says, I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, John 15 verse 15. Friends. With God. The idea was revolutionary. Intoxicating. Terrifying. And then I read John 3 verse 16. I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times. Maybe it's lost its power for you. But for me, a Muslim reading it for the first time, it destroyed me. For God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son, that whoever believes in Him shall not perish but have eternal life. I read that verse 10 times. 20 times. I couldn't move past it. Because in Islam, we're taught that Allah does not love everyone. He loves the righteous. He loves the obedient. He loves the faithful. But sinners? Kafirs? Enemies? Allah doesn't love them. He judges them. Punishes them. Destroys them. But this verse said God loved the world. Not just Muslims. Not just the obedient. The world. And He loved the world so much that He gave. He sacrificed. He entered into suffering. Allah would never do that. Allah doesn't suffer. Allah doesn't bleed. Allah doesn't die for His enemies. But Jesus did. I closed the laptop. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. Because I realized something terrifying. I was starting to believe it. I was starting to think that maybe everything I'd been taught was wrong. Maybe Isa wasn't just a prophet. Maybe he was exactly who he claimed to be, the Son of God. The Savior. The Way. But I couldn't say it out loud. I couldn't even say it to myself. Because to believe that meant I was committing shirk, the unforgivable sin in Islam. Associating partners with Allah. Believing God had a son. That's blasphemy. That's a one-way ticket to eternal hellfire. So I buried it. I closed the laptop. I went back to praying 5 times a day. I went back to teaching. I went back to pretending. But the seed was planted. And seeds don't stay buried. 3 months later, ISIS took the city. And Samira, the girl who gave me that question, who started this whole crisis of faith, was one of the first people they killed. They found the Bible in her room, dragged her into the street, stoned her to death in front of her family. She was 16 years old. I watched it happen. I was in the crowd. They made us watch. And as the rocks broke her body, as her blood pooled in the dirt, she whispered something. I was close enough to hear it. 3 words in Arabic. Isa, forgive them. Jesus, forgive them. The same words Jesus said on the cross. The same words I'd read in that forbidden book. She died praying for the people who were murdering her. And I knew, in that moment, watching a 16-year-old girl die with forgiveness on her lips, I knew that whatever she had found, whatever she had believed, it was real. Because no one dies like that for a lie. No one forgives their murderers unless they've encountered someone more powerful than death itself. That night, I told Rasha everything. I showed her the digital angel on my laptop. I told her about my doubts, my questions, my secret belief that maybe Jesus was who he said he was. I expected her to be angry, to call me an apostate, to threaten to turn me in. Instead, she started crying. I've been reading it too, she whispered. For 6 months. A Christian woman at the market gave me a copy. I've been terrified to tell you. We stared at each other. Husband and wife. Both secret believers. Both terrified. Both drawn to this Jesus we'd been taught to reject. What do we do? She asked. I don't know, I said. But I can't keep living a lie. I can't keep praying to Allah when my heart is crying out to Jesus. We decided to find the underground church. It took us 2 months. Christians in Syria don't advertise. They don't have signs or websites. They hide. They survive. But eventually, through whispered conversations and coded language, we found them. The night we walked into that basement church, 15 believers huddled in the dark, singing hymns in whispers, I felt like I was coming home. Like my soul had been wandering in the desert and finally found water. Brother Yusuf, the same man who would later be beheaded, he baptized us. In a plastic tub filled with water from a well. No ceremony. No audience. Just us, them, and Jesus. Do you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God? Yusuf asked, that he died for your sins and rose from the dead? I'd been taught my entire life that this was a lie. That this was shirk. That this would send me to hell. But standing in that dark basement, surrounded by people who had lost everything for this belief, I realized. I believed it. With everything in me, I believed it. Yes, I said. I believe. He dunked me under the water. 3 seconds. Maybe 5. When I came up, gasping, dripping, I felt different. Lighter. Like a weight I'd been carrying my entire life had been cut off. Rasha was next. Then Miriam, we'd explained everything to her, asked her if she wanted to follow Jesus, and she'd said yes with the simple, pure faith only a child can have. We were Christians now. Former Muslims. Apostates. Which meant if anyone found out, we were dead. For 3 years, we lived this double life. Publicly Muslim. Privately Christian. We still went to the mosque, we had to, or people would get suspicious. We still fasted during Ramadan. Still said Inshallah and Mashallah. But in our hearts, we belonged to Jesus. And every night, I prayed to him. Not facing Mecca. Not reciting memorized prayers in Arabic. Just talking. Like he was in the room with me. Like he cared. But when the persecution got worse, when Brother Yusuf was killed, when the jizya came due, when the purification campaign started, I stopped praying. Because it felt like Jesus, like Allah before him, wasn't listening. Until the night the militia surrounded our house. When I was hiding in that basement, listening to boots and chanting in the splash of gasoline, I had a choice. I could pray to Allah, the God of my childhood, the God I'd abandoned. Or I could pray to Jesus, the God I'd chosen, the God I barely knew. And in that moment, with death seconds away, I chose Jesus. Not because I had faith, but because I had nowhere else to go. Jesus, I whispered in the dark, holding my wife and daughter, hide us. Please. If you're real. If you're listening. If you're anything like what the angel says, save us. I'm yours. We're yours. Please. And that's when the miracle started. That's when heaven moved. That's when the God I'd been taught to fear as distant proved he was near. Near enough to hear. Near enough to care. Near enough to send an angel with a sword of fire to stand between me and death. Jesus didn't just save my life that night. He proved he was real. He proved he was listening. He proved that everything I'd risked, my reputation, my safety, my life, was worth it. Because he's not a dead prophet. He's a living savior. And he showed up when I needed him most. The hidden room in our basement was barely 6 feet by 8 feet. No windows. One small air vent we'd covered with cloth so no light would escape. The walls were concrete, cold, damp, pressing in on us like a tomb. We'd been hiding there for 2 hours. Maybe 3. Time stops meaning anything when you're waiting to die. Miriam was trembling. Not crying anymore, she'd run out of tears an hour ago, just shaking like a leaf in a storm. Rasha held her tight, whispering prayers in Arabic. Prayers to Jesus now, not Allah. Yeshua, protect us. Yeshua, hide us. Yeshua, save us. Over and over. A desperate mantra against the chaos above. I could hear everything through the concrete. Boots on the floor above us. Heavy. Coordinated. Military precision. They weren't just passing by. They were searching. Room by room. I heard furniture being overturned. Glass breaking. Doors kicked open. And then I heard Abu Hakim's voice. That British Syrian accent that made my skin crawl. Search everything, he shouted. Check the walls. Check the floors. These rats are hiding somewhere. I can smell them. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it would give us away. Could they hear it? Could they hear us breathing? I put my hand over Miriam's mouth, gently, carefully, because even the smallest sound could kill us. She understood. Her eyes were wide with terror, but she stayed silent. The footsteps moved directly above us. Right over our heads. I could hear them talking. Nothing up here, Commander. Place is empty. Check the basement, Abu Hakim ordered. Now. My blood turned to ice. The basement. They were coming down. I heard boots on the stairs. The wooden steps creaking under their weight. 2 men. Maybe 3. They reached the bottom. I could hear them breathing. One of them was right on the other side of our false wall. Maybe 3 feet away. If he knocked on it, if he noticed it sounded hollow, we were finished. Just old storage, one of them said. Broken furniture. Empty boxes. Check behind everything, Abu Hakim's voice shouted from upstairs. They could be hiding in the walls. Oh God. Oh Jesus. They were going to find us. They were going to tear down this wall and drag us out, and Miriam would watch her parents die, and then they'd take her in. I squeezed my eyes shut, pressed my forehead against Rosh's. Our daughter between us. Our family. Our whole world in 6 feet of concrete darkness. And I prayed. Silently. Desperately. Jesus. 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 Hide us. Make us invisible. Blind their eyes. Please. I heard one of the men walking around the basement. His footsteps getting closer to our wall. Closer. Closer. He stopped. Right in front of it. I could hear him breathing through the crack. And then he walked away. Nothing down here, he called up. Just junk. He walked away. He'd been standing right in front of the false wall, a wall that looked different from the others, that was obviously newer, and he walked away. The first impossible thing. The first miracle. But I didn't recognize it yet. I just thought we'd gotten lucky. The men went back upstairs. I heard them talking to Abu Hakim. House is clear, Commander. No one's here. There was a long pause. Then Abu Hakim spoke, and his voice was angry. Frustrated. That's impossible. My sources said they were here. Tonight. Maybe they ran, someone suggested. Maybe they got out before we arrived. Another pause. Longer this time. I held my breath. Prayed he would believe it. Prayed they would leave. Burn it, Abu Hakim finally said. My stomach dropped. What? One of the men asked. Burn the house. If they're hiding inside, the fire will flush them out. If they already ran, then we destroy their home. Either way, they lose. No. No, 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 and no. I heard them leaving. Boots stomping up the stairs. Out the front door. And then the worst sound I've ever heard in my life, the splash of liquid against wood. Against walls. The sharp chemical smell of gasoline seeping through the concrete. Through the cracks. Filling our hidden room with toxic fumes. Miriam started coughing. Quiet little coughs she tried to muffle against her mother's shoulder. Rasha was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. I looked at my wife, my beautiful, faithful, strong wife, and I saw in her eyes the same thing I was feeling. We're going to burn alive. We couldn't stay in the hidden room. The smoke alone would kill us. But if we came out, they'd catch us and execute us. There was no good option. Just different ways to die. We have to go upstairs, I whispered. At least up there we have a chance. Down here we'll suffocate. Rasha nodded. She understood. We had no choice. I pushed open the false wall. The basement was filling with smoke, gray, thick, choking smoke pouring in from upstairs. I could hear the fire roaring above us. The heat was already intense, pressing down like a physical weight. We ran to the basement stairs. I went first. Rasha behind me with Miriam in her arms. The stairs were burning, actual flames licking up the wooden railings. I could feel the heat on my face, in my lungs. My eyes were watering. Miriam was screaming now, she couldn't help it, couldn't hold it in anymore. We reached the first floor. The entire room was engulfed. Walls of fire. Ceiling dripping flames. The front door, our only exit, completely blocked by a wall of fire 12 feet high. No way out. No possible way out. Through the broken window, I could see them. Abu Hakim and his men. Standing in the street. Watching. Waiting. Weapons ready. They'd positioned themselves around the house. If we somehow made it out of the fire, they'd shoot us. We were trapped between burning and bullets. "Get upstairs," I shouted over the roar of the flames. If we were going to die, at least we'd die together. In our bedroom. In each other's arms. We ran up the stairs, they were burning too, collapsing under our feet. I grabbed Miriam from Rasha's arms, threw her over my shoulder, and pulled Rasha up with my other hand. We stumbled into our bedroom. I slammed the door shut, pointless, but instinct, and we collapsed on the floor. The smoke was so thick I couldn't see. Couldn't breathe. Miriam was gasping, choking. Rasha was coughing so hard she was vomiting. The heat, oh God, the heat, it was like being inside an oven. The walls were blistering. The paint was melting. Our blankets spontaneously burst into flames. This was it. This was the end. No miraculous escape. No last-minute rescue. Just fire and smoke and death. I pulled my wife and daughter into the center of the room, away from the walls, away from the door. I wrapped my arms around them. Covered them with my body. As if that would somehow protect them from an inferno. "I'm sorry," I sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I should have gotten you out. I should have saved you." "You did save us," Rasha choked out. "You brought us to Jesus. That's everything." Miriam was barely conscious. Her little body limp in my arms. Not moving. Maybe already gone. And I broke. Completely, utterly broke. I threw my head back and I screamed at God. Not a prayer. A demand. An accusation. A desperate, dying cry. "Jesus, where are you? You said you'd never leave us. You said you'd never forsake us. You promised. So where are you? Save us. Do something. Send your angels. Send your fire. Send your..." And then I stopped. Because I realized what I'd just said. Send your fire. God had used fire before. In the Bible. The burning bush that didn't burn. The pillar of fire that protected Israel. The 3 Hebrews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, thrown into the furnace. The fire that should have killed them but didn't even touch them. Could he do it again? Could the God of the Old Testament, the God of impossible miracles, could he do it now? Here? For me? I grabbed Rasha's face. Looked into her dying eyes. "The 3 Hebrews," I gasped. "The furnace. God saved them from fire." She stared at me. Confused. Delirious from smoke inhalation. "He can do it again," I said. "He can. He will." I don't know where the faith came from. 2 minutes ago I had none. But suddenly, in the absolute worst moment of my life, I had certainty. Not hope. Certainty. The kind of faith that makes no logical sense but feels more real than the fire burning around you. I struggled to my knees. Pulled my wife and daughter up with me. We knelt there in the center of that burning room, flames on all sides, smoke so thick we couldn't see 2 feet in front of us, and I prayed. Not a quiet prayer. Not a whispered prayer. I shouted. At the top of my burning lungs. In Arabic. In broken English. In tongues I didn't even know I was speaking. "Jesus. Son of God. Savior of the world. You walked through fire in Babylon. You walk through fire now. You are the 4th man in the furnace. Be here. Be with us. Protect us. In the name that is above every name, in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, I command this fire to BOW. I command it to part. I command it to obey its creator. And then I grabbed my wife and daughter, stood to my feet, don't ask me how, don't ask me where the strength came from, and I walked toward the door. Toward the fire. What are you doing? Rasha screamed. I'm walking us out, I said. Jesus is going to part this fire like he parted the Red Sea. I don't know how, but I know he will. I kicked open the bedroom door. The hallway was a tunnel of fire. Flames on the walls. Flames on the ceiling. Flames on the floor. No human could survive walking through that. It was impossible. But God specializes in impossible. I took one step forward. Then another. Into the fire. Rasha was screaming. Miriam was limp in my arms. And I was walking into an inferno with nothing but faith that God would make a way. And that's when it happened. The fire didn't part like the Red Sea. It did something impossible. Something I still can't fully explain. Something that makes scientists shake their heads and atheists go silent when I show them the video footage. The flames bent. I'm not speaking metaphorically. I'm not exaggerating. The fire, 12-foot-high walls of roaring, consuming, raging fire, it curved away from us. Like an invisible dome was pushing it back. Like the fire itself was alive and obeying a command I couldn't hear. The moment I stepped into that hallway with Miriam in my arms and Rasha clutching my shirt from behind, the temperature dropped. Not gradually. Instantly. From unbearable, skin-blistering heat to cool air. Not cold. Not even room temperature. But breathable. Survivable. I stopped walking. Frozen in shock. Because I was standing in the center of a fire tunnel, flames on my left, flames on my right, flames above me on the ceiling, and I wasn't burning. My clothes weren't even smoking. What is happening? Rasha screamed, but her voice wasn't filled with terror anymore. It was filled with AWE. Wonder. Because she could see it too. We both could. The fire was creating a path. An actual, physical corridor of empty space about 3 feet wide, leading from our bedroom, down the hall, to the stairs. And the flames, I could see them moving, writhing, trying to reach us but being held back by something invisible. I looked down at Miriam in my arms. Her eyes were open now. She wasn't choking anymore. She was breathing. Staring at the flames with a 7-year-old's pure, simple faith. Baba, she whispered, are those angels? I looked where she was pointing. At the walls of fire. And I saw them. Or I saw something. Shapes. Tall. Massive. Like silhouettes inside the flames. Moving. Standing between us and the fire. Holding it back. Yes, baby, I choked out. Those are angels. I started walking again. 1 step. 2 steps. The path of cool air moved with us. Like a bubble. A shield. I could feel the heat on the edges if I reached my hand out even 6 inches. The temperature was scorching, but inside this impossible space, we were protected. We reached the stairs. They were completely engulfed. The wooden steps were black. Collapsing. Disintegrating into ash. No way to walk down them. No way to. And then the fire on the stairs died. Just went out. Like someone had dumped 1,000 gallons of water on them. No water. No explanation. Just extinguished. Instantly. A smoking, Charred staircase, still structurally intact, appeared where there had been solid flames 2 seconds ago. "Go!" I shouted. "Go now!" We ran down those stairs. My feet should have burned through the hot, charred wood. They didn't. We should have inhaled toxic smoke and collapsed. We didn't. We reached the first floor, the entire room still burning, furniture melting, walls crumbling, and the same thing happened. A path of cool air. A corridor through impossibility. I could see the front door, still blocked by that massive wall of fire. But I didn't hesitate. I didn't think. I just walked toward it. Because I knew with a certainty that bypassed my brain and came straight from my spirit that God was going to make a way. 3 feet from the door, the wall of fire split. Down the middle. Like a curtain being pulled back. The flames peeled left and right, leaving a doorway-sized opening. Clear. Cool. Impossible. I heard shouting outside. Abu Hakim and his men. They'd seen it. They'd seen the fire move. I stepped through. Out of the inferno. Into the street. And the moment my foot touched the pavement outside our home, the fire roared back. The doorway closed. The flames consumed our house again, collapsing the roof, shattering the remaining walls. But we were out. We were alive. We were standing in the street, untouched, unburned, breathing. Abu Hakim was 20 feet away. Staring at us. His mouth open. His AK-47 hanging loose in his hands. 15 fighters around him. All of them frozen. Not in tactical positions. Not ready to shoot. Just staring. Like they'd seen a ghost. That's impossible, Abu Hakim whispered. His voice was shaking. You were inside. We saw you go upstairs. The fire. The fire obeyed its creator, I said. My voice was steady. Strong. Filled with a power that wasn't mine. You can't kill us, Abu Hakim. Because we belong to Jesus. And he is stronger than your fire. Stronger than your swords. Stronger than your hate. One of the fighters, a young man, maybe 19, dropped his weapon. It clattered on the pavement. I saw them, he stammered. In the fire. Giants. With swords. Made of light. Shut up. Abu Hakim snarled. But his eyes were terrified. Because he'd seen them too. I could tell. The angels. The army of heaven that had surrounded our house. And then I saw him. The one from my bedroom window. The angel. Standing between me and the militants. Not made of flesh. Radiant. Glowing with a light that didn't come from fire or electricity but from somewhere else. Somewhere holy. He was massive, 8 feet tall, maybe more, with shoulders like a warrior and a face that was beautiful and terrible at the same time. And in his hand, that sword. Burning. Blazing. Not with natural fire. With holy fire. The kind that destroys darkness. I could see him as clearly as I'm seeing you right now. Solid. Real. Not a vision. Not a hallucination. A physical, actual being standing in my driveway. But here's the thing that broke the militants, they could see him too. Do you see it? The young fighter was screaming, backing away. Do you see it? Abu Hakim was stumbling backward. His face had gone white. All the arrogance, all the confidence, all the evil gone. Replaced by primal, animal fear. It's a jinn, he stammered. A demon sent by. It's not a demon, I said. And I don't know how I had the courage to speak. The words just came. It's an angel of the living God, sent to protect his children. And you can't touch us. You can't hurt us. Because he stands between us. The angel didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stood there. The sword raised. Positioned. Ready. And then, I'll never forget this, a second angel appeared. Then a third. Then more. I stopped counting at 10. They materialized out of nothing. One moment empty air. The next moment warriors. An army of heaven. Surrounding us. Surrounding our burning house. A perimeter of holy fire and divine strength. Abu Hakim screamed. An actual, high-pitched scream of terror. And he ran. Just turned and ran down the street like a child running from a nightmare. His men followed. Some of them dropped their weapons. Some of them were crying. All of them were fleeing. And in the chaos, in the impossible, supernatural moment, 3 of them didn't run. The young fighter who'd seen the giants. A man in his 40s with a gray beard. And a teenager, maybe 17. They fell to their knees. Right there in the street. Hands raised. Weeping. Forgive us, the young one sobbed. We didn't know. We didn't know you were real. I stared at them. Former ISIS fighters. Men who minutes ago had been trying to burn us alive. Now on their knees. Broken. Crying out to the God they'd spent years denying. The angels were still there. I could still see them. But they'd lowered their swords. Not threatening anymore. Just watching. Like they were waiting to see what would happen next. I walked toward the 3 men. Rasha tried to pull me back. What are you doing? But I knew. I knew what I had to do. I knelt down in front of them. Put my hand on the young fighter's shoulder. He flinched, expected me to hit him, maybe. To curse him. To reject him. Instead, I said, Jesus came to save sinners. Not the righteous. Sinners. And if he can forgive me, a man who denied him, doubted him, cursed him, he can forgive you. We tried to kill you, the gray-bearded man choked out. We tried to burn your family. How can your God forgive that? Because he forgave the men who crucified him, I said. While they were nailing him to the cross, he prayed, Father, forgive them. That's who Jesus is. That's the God we serve. The 17-year-old was hyperventilating. I see them, he gasped. The light. The beings. They're still here. They're angels, I said gently. Messengers of God. Sent to protect us. But also sent to witness. To show you that God is real. That Jesus is alive. And that no power, not ISIS, not fire, not death, can separate his people from his love. Right there in the street, with our house collapsing in flames behind us, with the sound of sirens in the distance, yes, some emergency services still worked, with the smell of smoke and gasoline choking the air, those 3 men prayed. I led them in the same prayer I'd prayed 3 years ago. The prayer that cost me everything and gave me everything. Jesus, I believe you are the Son of God. I believe you died for my sins. I believe you rose from the dead. Forgive me. Save me. I'm yours. And when they said amen, when they looked up with tears streaming down their faces, the angels vanished. Not gradually. Instantly. Like they'd completed their mission and returned to wherever they'd come from. But the presence remained. The feeling that we were not alone. That God was here. That heaven had invaded earth for just a few moments. And nothing would ever be the same. Our house burned to the ground that night. Everything we owned gone. But we were alive. Untouched. Not a single burn. Not a single scar. Not even the smell of smoke on our clothes. I looked down at Miriam. She was smiling. Smiling. After the worst trauma of her young life, she was smiling. "Baba," she said, "I'm not scared anymore. Because the angels are real. And Jesus is real. And if he can save us from that," she pointed at the burning ruins of our home, "he can save us from anything." Out of the mouths of babes. The impossible had happened. The biblically impossible. Fire had bowed. Angels had appeared. Enemies had converted. And we, a family that should have been ASH, were standing in the street, alive, whole, and praising the God who does impossible things. But the story doesn't end there. Because miracles don't just happen. They have witnesses. They have consequences. They have ripple effects that change everything. And what happened next? The people who saw the video that went viral, the cost of surviving a miracle, that's what I need to tell you about now. Within 20 minutes, our street was flooded with people. Not militants this time. Neighbors. Families who'd been hiding in their homes, watching through cracks in their curtains, witnessing the impossible. They poured out of their houses like water breaking through a dam. 50 people. 100. More. Muslims, Christians, even a few atheists who'd stopped believing in anything years ago when the war stole their hope. They surrounded us. Staring. Touching us. Like they needed physical proof that we were real. That we weren't ghosts or hallucinations. An elderly woman, Khalid, she lived 3 houses down, she grabbed my face with both hands. Her fingers were trembling. "I saw them," she whispered, her voice cracking. "The beings. The men of light. They were real. I saw them with my own eyes." "So did I," said a man behind her. Ahmad, a shopkeeper. Sunni Muslim. 5 times a day prayer. Quran memorizer. "I watched the fire bend. I watched it move. Fire doesn't do that. Fire doesn't obey. Unless," he trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Unable to say what his eyes had shown him but his theology couldn't accept. "Unless God commanded it," I finished for him. He stared at me. Then slowly, so slowly, like his body was fighting every movement, he nodded. A teenage boy pushed through the crowd. Skinny. Ragged clothes. I recognized him, Omar, one of my former students from before the war. "Teacher Ahmad," he said breathlessly, "I filmed it. I have it on my phone." My heart stopped. "You filmed it?" He nodded frantically, pulling out a battered smartphone with a cracked screen. "I was hiding on my roof. When I saw the flames, I thought I should record it. In case anyone survived. In case anyone wanted to know what happened. So I started filming and then his hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the phone. Then I saw them. The beings. The light. It's all here. On video." He turned the phone toward me. Hit play. And there it was. Grainy. Shaky. But clear. Unmistakable. The video showed our house engulfed in flames. Showed the militants standing around it, weapons ready. And then, right there on the screen, figures. Tall. Radiant. Standing in positions around our home. You could see them clearly. Not as clear as I'd seen them in person, but clear enough. Clear enough that you couldn't dismiss them as lens flares or camera glitches or tricks of the light. And then the video captured us. Walking out of the inferno. Me carrying Miriam. Rasha beside me. Walking through fire that should have killed us. The flames bending away. Creating that impossible corridor. You could hear Omar's voice on the video. Whispered. Stunned. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. What that? What am I seeing? And then the part that made my blood run cold and my spirit soar at the same time, you could see the militants fleeing. You could see the three who stayed. Falling to their knees. The moment of conversion captured on a cell phone in war-torn Syria. How many people have seen this? I asked Omar. I sent it to my cousin in Turkey 10 minutes ago, he said nervously. And he shared it. On social media. On WhatsApp. It's Teacher Ahmad, it's already spreading. Oh God. Oh Jesus. This wasn't just a private miracle anymore. This was public. Viral. Which meant we were in more danger than ever. Because ISIS doesn't just kill Christians. They kill Christians who make them look weak. Christians whose God shows up in power. Christians whose miracles convert fighters. But before I could process the implications, someone else pushed through the crowd. A woman. 30s. Covered head to toe in black abaya and niqab, only her eyes visible. She stopped in front of me. And then she did something shocking. She pulled down her niqab. Exposed her face. In public. In front of men. In an ISIS-controlled area. Cultural and religious suicide. My name is Fatima, she said, her voice shaking but strong. I've been a Muslim my entire life. I've worn this niqab since I was 12. I've prayed. I've fasted. I've memorized Quran. And I've felt nothing. No peace. No love. Just rules and fear and emptiness. Tears were streaming down her face. But I saw what happened tonight. I saw the angels. I saw the fire obey. And I know in my soul that your Jesus is real. And I want him. I want what you have. The crowd went silent. Because what she'd just said, what she'd just confessed, was apostasy. Public apostasy. In an area where apostasy equals death. I looked at her. This brave, desperate, seeking woman. And I said, then he's yours. Jesus came for people like you. People like me. People who've been searching for God in all the wrong places. He's been waiting for you, Fatima. And tonight, he showed up to prove he's real. Right there in the street, surrounded by 100 witnesses, Fatima prayed to accept Jesus. Loudly. In Arabic. So everyone could hear. And then something miraculous happened. Again. A man in the crowd, older, maybe 60, with a long gray beard and a white prayer cap, stepped forward. I recognized him. Sheikh Ibrahim. The imam of the local mosque. A respected teacher. A Quran scholar. Everyone went silent. Because if the imam was here, we were finished. He'd call the militants. He'd order our execution. I saw them too, he said quietly. The angels. I've been teaching about angels my entire life. About Jibreel. About Mikhail. About the armies of Allah. But I've never seen one. Not once. Not in 60 years. He looked at me with eyes that were broken. Humbled. seeking. But tonight I saw 10. Maybe more. And they weren't protecting me. They were protecting you. Christians. Followers of ISA. He paused. Swallowed hard. Either everything I've taught is true and Allah sent angels to protect you, or everything I've taught is wrong and ISA is more than a prophet. The tension was unbearable. 100 people holding their breath, waiting to see which way the Imam would go. He took a deep, shaking breath. The Quran says ISA Jesus was born of a virgin, that he healed the sick, raised the dead, that he ascended to heaven, that he will return to judge the world. The Quran gives him titles it gives to no other prophet, the Word of God, the Spirit of God, sinless. He looked around at the crowd. If Allah gave ISA all of that, maybe ISA is more than we've been told. Maybe the Christians are right. Maybe he's not just a prophet. Maybe he's the Son of God. Someone in the crowd gasped. Because an imam had just spoken shirk, the unforgivable sin. Associating partners with Allah. Calling Jesus the Son of God. Sheikh Ibrahim turned to me. I don't know how to pray to him. I don't know the words. But I want to know him. The real him. Not the Quranic version. The Jesus who sends angels with swords. Who walks through fire. Who saves. Will you teach me? I was weeping. Openly, uncontrollably weeping. Because the Imam, the man who'd preached against Christianity for 40 years, was asking me to teach him about Jesus. Yes, I choked out. Yes, Sheikh. I will. And right there, under a smoky sky lit orange by our burning home, Sheikh Ibrahim prayed. The 3 former militants prayed with him. Fatima prayed. And then one by one 17 more people stepped forward. Muslims. Seekers. Doubters. Desperate souls who'd seen the impossible and couldn't UNSE it. By the time the sun rose, 23 people had prayed to accept Jesus. 23 new believers. Born in fire. Witnessed by angels. Baptized by impossible circumstances. But not everyone was celebrating. Some people in the crowd were angry. Scared. You're going to get us all killed, one man shouted. When ISIS finds out what happened here, they'll slaughter this entire neighborhood. He was right. We all knew he was right. The video was spreading. The witnesses were talking. By morning, Abu Hakim would know. By afternoon, ISIS leadership would know. By evening, they'd send reinforcements. Not 15 fighters. 100. Maybe more. And they wouldn't just try to burn us. They'd massacre everyone who'd witnessed the miracle. Everyone who'd converted. Everyone who could testify. We need to leave, Rasha said, pulling me aside. Now. Tonight. Before they come back. And go where? I asked. The checkpoints will be locked down. They'll have our faces. Our names. There's nowhere. There's somewhere, said a voice behind me. I turned. It was one of the men who'd converted the gray-bearded fighter. His name was Khaled. Former ISIS. Former killer. Now brother in Christ. I know a route. Through the desert. No checkpoints. It's dangerous mines, no water, extreme heat, but it's the only way out. I've used it before for smuggling. I can guide you. Why would you help us? Rasha asked suspiciously. You tried to kill us 3 hours ago. Khalid looked at her with eyes that were changed. Softened. broken and remade. Because Jesus saved me. From myself. From my evil. From hell. And the only way I can begin to make up for what I've done, the people I've killed, the families I've destroyed, is to save the people He saved. If I can get you out of Syria alive, maybe God will forgive some of what I did. I looked at this man. This enemy turned brother. And I saw the same transformation I'd experienced 3 years ago. The same impossible grace. The same scandalous forgiveness. When do we leave? I asked. 2 hours, Khaled said. Before dawn. Before ISIS wakes up and realizes what happened. The next 2 hours were chaos. Omar sent me the video. I saved it on my phone, uploaded it to 3 different cloud accounts because I knew this evidence was vital. Not just for us. For everyone. For every person who'd ever doubted that God still does miracles. For every Muslim who'd been told Jesus was just a prophet. For every atheist who'd said the supernatural was impossible. This video was proof. Imperfect. Grainy. But real. Sheikh Ibrahim gave me his Quran. I don't need this anymore, he said quietly. But I need a Bible. The Injil. Do you have one? I did. One of the few things we'd grabbed from our house before it collapsed. Burned on the edges. Pages singed. But readable. I handed it to him. Read the Gospel of John first, I told him. It will tell you who Jesus really is. He clutched it like a treasure. Like a man dying of thirst who'd just been handed water. As we prepared to leave, gathering the few supplies we had, saying goodbye to neighbors who wept because they knew they might never see us again, a white UN vehicle pulled up. 2 aid workers, a man and a woman, both wearing blue vests with humanitarian aid printed on them. European. Probably French or Belgian based on their accents. We heard there was a fire, the woman said in broken Arabic. We came to offer medical assistance and she stopped. Stared at me. At Rasha. At Miriam. You were inside that house? I nodded. That's impossible. The structure collapsed. The heat would have been over 1,000 degrees Celsius. No one could survive that. We didn't survive it, I said quietly. God saved us. She looked at me like I was insane. The male aid worker pulled out a medical kit. Let me examine you. Check for burns, smoke inhalation. He checked us. All 3 of us. Pulse. Breathing. Skin. Hair. Clothes. No burns, he muttered. No sing marks. No smoke damage. Your lungs sound clear. This is, he looked at his colleague. Switched to French. I don't speak French, but I know the word he used, impossible. We have it on video, Omar said, stepping forward with his phone. He showed them. The aid workers watched. Silent. When it finished, the woman was pale. Those figures, she whispered. What are they? Angels, I said simply. Sent by God to protect us. I'm an atheist, she said, her voice shaking. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in angels. I don't believe in miracles. But I just watched. She couldn't finish. She sat down on the ground. Put her head in her hands. I can't explain this, the male aid worker said. I'm going to file a report, but I don't know what to write. No one will believe it. They don't have to believe, I said. But you saw it. And you can testify. That's all God asks. Be a witness. They left. shell-shocked, confused. But witnesses. Add them to the list. By the time we left, Khalid leading us, Rasha carrying Miriam, me carrying a backpack with water, bread, and the phone with the video, there were 70 people gathered to see us off. Muslims, Christians, seekers, doubters. All of them changed by what they'd seen. "Where will you go?" Khalid asked, tears streaming down her weathered face. "I don't know," I admitted. "Turkey, maybe. Then Europe. Wherever God leads. But I'll tell this story. Everywhere I go. To everyone who'll listen. Because this miracle wasn't just for US. It was for the world. To prove that Jesus is alive. That he hears. That he saves. That nothing is impossible for him." As we walked into the desert, into the darkness, into the unknown, I looked back one more time. At the ruins of our home. At the crowd of witnesses. At the place where heaven invaded earth. And I knew my life would never be the same. I'd lost my home. My possessions. My safety. But I'd gained something infinitely more valuable. I'd gained a testimony. A story that would change lives. Convert skeptics. Strengthen believers. And prove to a watching world that the God of the Bible, the God who parted seas and stopped the sun and raised the dead, he's still doing miracles. He's still saving. He's still showing up. He's still alive. And I was alive to tell about it. We walked through the desert for 11 days. 11 days with almost no water, blistering heat during the day, freezing cold at night, and the constant terror of landmines buried beneath the sand. Khalid led us through paths he'd memorized from his ISIS smuggling days, routes he'd used to traffic weapons and fighters. Now he was using them to save the very people he'd once hunted. On the third day, our water ran out. Completely. We had nothing. Miriam's lips were cracked and bleeding. Rasha was delirious from dehydration. I was carrying Miriam because she couldn't walk anymore. And Khalid, former militant, brand new believer, fell to his knees in the sand and prayed. "Jesus," he said in broken Arabic mixed with tears, "I don't know how to pray like them. I'm new to this. But you saved us from fire. Can you save us from thirst? Please. For the child. She's innocent." 2 hours later, 2 hours, we crested a sand dune and found a well. An actual stone well in the middle of nowhere. Khalid stared at it like he'd seen a ghost. "This wasn't here before," he whispered. "I've taken this route 15 times. There's never been a well here. Never. But there it was. Ancient looking. Stone walls covered in sand. And when we lowered our bottle down on a rope, water. Clean. Cool. Impossible water. We drank. We cried. We filled every container we had. And Khalid looked at me with wonder in his eyes. He did it again. Jesus did it again. He's not finished with us yet, I said. He has a purpose. A plan. And he'll keep providing until it's fulfilled. We reached the Turkish border on day 11. Exhausted. Starving. But alive. Turkish border guards detained us immediately. No passports, no papers, no legal way to prove who we were. They put us in a refugee holding facility. Concrete buildings. Barbed wire. Hundreds of other Syrians in the same situation. Waiting. Hoping. Praying for asylum. We spent 4 months there. 4 months of uncertainty. But during those 4 months, I told our story. To everyone. In the refugee camp. in the mess hall, in the medical clinic, to guards, to aid workers, to other refugees who'd lost everything and lost hope. And people believed. Not everyone, but many. I showed them the video on my phone, charged it using a communal solar panel, guarded it like my life because it was our only proof. Muslims watched it. Atheists watched it. Broken, desperate, traumatized people watched it. And 17 more people prayed to accept Jesus. In a refugee camp. In a place of despair. New believers were being born. A Turkish pastor, Pastor Mehmet, heard about us through the camp grapevine. He came to visit. Brought us food. Blankets. A Bible in Arabic for Khaled. And when I told him our story, when I showed him the video, he wept. "Brother," he said, "this is bigger than you realize. Do you know how many Muslims in Turkey are searching? How many are disillusioned with Islam? How many are hungry for truth but have never seen proof that Jesus is real? This video, this testimony, it's going to shake this region. It's already spreading," I told him. Omar told me it's been shared thousands of times on social media. Underground Christian networks. Muslim discussion forums. Even ISIS has seen it. They're calling it propaganda. Saying it's CGI. Fake. Let them call it whatever they want, Pastor Mehmet said. But they can't explain it away. They can't account for the witnesses. For the conversions. For the 3 fighters who turned from ISIS to Jesus. That's not propaganda. That's power. After 4 months, our asylum application was approved. Not to Turkey, to Sweden. A country I'd only seen on maps. A place so far from Syria it felt like another planet. We were given plane tickets. Legal papers. A new start. The night before we left, Khaled came to our tent. He'd been approved for asylum to different country, Germany. We were being separated. This man who'd tried to kill me. Who'd become my brother. Who'd led us through the desert. Who'd seen Jesus save him from himself. "I don't know how to thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You could have rejected me. Hated me. Left me to ISIS justice. But you loved me. You showed me Jesus." "I didn't show you anything," I said. "Jesus showed you. I'm just as broken as you. Just as undeserving. That's the point. That's what makes grace scandalous. It's not for people who deserve it. It's for people who don't." He hugged me. This former ISIS fighter. This former enemy. Now eternal family. "I'll tell our story everywhere I go," he promised. In Germany. In Europe. Everywhere. People need to know. Yes, I agreed. They do. We've been in Sweden for 2 years now. 2 years of adjustment. Learning a new language. New culture. New everything. We live in a small apartment provided by the government. Rasha works cleaning offices. I work at a warehouse. Miriam goes to school, she's 9 now, learning Swedish faster than both of us, smiling again, laughing again. But our real work, our real mission, happens after hours. In the evenings. On weekends. We tell our story. To everyone. I've spoken at churches, Swedish churches, immigrant churches, underground house churches for Muslim background believers. I've shared in community centers. Refugee support groups. Online forums. Zoom calls with believers in Syria who are still hiding, still surviving, still witnessing. The video has been viewed over 2 million times now. 2 million. Shared across WhatsApp, Telegram, YouTube. It keeps getting taken down, but people keep re-uploading it. It's been subtitled in 12 languages. Fact-checkers have tried to debunk it: video artifacts, mass hallucination, clever editing. But they can't explain the witnesses. Can't explain the 70 people who saw it in person. Can't explain the 3 ISIS fighters who converted and whose testimonies have been documented by human rights organizations. Sheikh Ibrahim is still in Syria, still alive, miraculously. He's leading an underground church now. Former imam. Now pastor. He sends me messages when he can, encrypted, careful. 23 new believers this month, one message said. The fire that was meant to destroy you became the fire that ignites revival. Fatima made it to France. She messages me too. She's married now to a Christian man, a former refugee like her. I'm free, she wrote. Free from the niqab. Free from fear. Free to worship Jesus openly. Thank you for showing me the way. But it hasn't been easy. There are still threats. ISIS has a price on my head: $50,000 US dollars for anyone who kills me. I've received death threats online. Messages telling me I'll burn in real fire soon. Promises that they'll find my family. Hurt my daughter. Finish what they started. I'm not going to lie to you, I'm scared sometimes. I wake up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat, remembering the boots on our floor, the smell of gasoline, the heat of the flames. PTSD is real. Trauma is real. Miracles don't erase the scars. They just prove that God is bigger than the scars. But here's what I know: I didn't survive that fire to hide. I didn't walk through impossible flames to live a quiet, safe, silent life. God saved me for a reason. For a purpose. To be a witness. To tell the world, especially the Muslim world, that Jesus is not who they've been told he is. He's not a minor prophet. Not a dead teacher. Not a corrupted message. He's the Son of God. The Savior of the world. The one who enters fire with you. Who sends angels to protect you. Who turns enemies into family. Who does impossible things for people who have nothing to offer except desperate faith. So let me speak directly to you now. Yes, you. Watching this video. Listening to my story. Maybe you're Muslim. Maybe you're atheist. Maybe you're a Christian who stopped believing God still does miracles. Whoever you are, listen. To my Muslim brothers and sisters, I was you. I prayed 5 times a day. I fasted. I memorized Quran. I believed. And I felt empty. Distant from Allah. Terrified of judgment. Never sure if I'd done enough. And then I met Jesus, not through a church or a missionary, but through a crisis. Through desperation. And he answered. He showed up. He proved he's alive. I'm not asking you to abandon your faith lightly. I know the cost. I know what you'll lose: family, community, safety, maybe your life. But I'm telling you, Jesus is worth it. Every loss. Every sacrifice. Every risk. Because he's not just true, he's good. He's not just powerful, he's loving. And he's waiting for you to call on his name. Just try. In secret, if you have to. Say, Jesus, if you're real, show me. And watch what he does. 2 atheists and skeptics, I have evidence. Video footage. 70+ witnesses. Medical documentation from UN workers. 3 former ISIS fighters whose conversions are documented. You can dismiss one person's testimony. You can call it delusion or wishful thinking. But can you dismiss 2 million people who've watched the video? Can you dismiss the physics of fire bending away from us? Can you dismiss the psychological impossibility of 3 ISIS fighters converting after seeing angels? I'm not asking you to believe in religion. I'm asking you to look at the evidence and admit, something happened that night. Something that doesn't fit naturalistic explanation. And maybe you need to consider that the supernatural is real. That God is real. That Jesus is real. 2 Christians, stop living like miracles ended with the book of Acts. Stop living like God is distant or silent or only worked in the past. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. The same God who parted the Red Sea parted the fire around my house. The same God who sent angels to Peter's prison sent angels to my street. The same God who raised Lazarus raised me and my family from certain death. If you're facing impossible situations, health, finances, persecution, despair, call on Jesus. Not as a last resort. As your first response. He hears. He cares. And He moves. Maybe not always the way we expect. Maybe not always the way we want. But He moves. And His miracles are not just to save us, they're to create witnesses. People who can testify. People who can say, I was there. I saw. And God is real. I'm sitting here in my small Swedish apartment. It's raining outside. Gray skies. Cold. A world away from the desert heat of Syria. But my heart is still on fire. Because I carry a message. A testimony. A proof that cannot be denied.